Guys, real honor to have Emily McEvilly today, Chief Customer Officer at Workday. God, it's good to see you smile. Anil Bushri, the co-founder and co-CEO, had been one of the earliest guests in this series talking about customer acrobatics. Since Emily is a customer officer, I'm sure we hear plenty more of those. So Emily, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit more about your career and your role at Workday, and then we'll jump into some of the questions.
Yeah. Hey, Vinnie, it's great to see you. It's been a long time, right? At least a year since we were together at the last Rising.
That's right, in Orlando, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no conferences for a long time, unfortunately. So.
Hey, but football's back. How's Clemson doing?
Football's back. We are #1 right now. For those of you following along, I know you're in the South, so you watch college football, not like West Coasters, but yes, our quarterback, our star quarterback, right, contracted COVID. He's on the mend. Luckily, we have a backup. We have a big game coming up against Notre Dame, right? It's the time that we're recording this. It's tomorrow. So.
Well, I live in Tampa, so we have Tom Brady and the Gronk and Antonio Brown now, and so keep graduating your graduates, and we'll keep absorbing them. So Emily, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yep. So after Clemson, I joined PeopleSoft, and I was at PeopleSoft for a number of years as a consultant and other management positions. And then I stayed through the Oracle acquisition and worked for Oracle for a while. I took time off after that. I was a stay-at-home mom for about 4 years living in England while my husband was working there. And then when I came back, I started working at Workday. And I've been here for 10 years. I just had my 10-year anniversary last week. It's been a pretty amazing ride. We had a handful of customers when I started. And then most recently, back in December, Anil asked me to take a new role, a newly formed role called the Chief Customer Officer. I was honored to do that. Under my team, I have our professional services organization, our training organization, customer success and support. And I think customers can think of me as the chief advocate, the chief customer advocate at Workday amongst our executive committee. And it's been a really fun ride, and I'm loving this new role, kind of bringing all these experiences together in terms of how we service our customers, right? So, the combination of products that are helping fulfill their needs along with personalized customer service, it's been really fun to deliver for our customers.
And I guess your role is global, so you're keeping up with your English friends and so on?
I am. Yeah, it's global. Global and 24/7, right? Like everything is right now.
Yeah, and a lot on Zoom. Emily, in all the doom and gloom in the last 6 months, it's actually been an amazing time, isn't it? I mean, you look at all the healthcare heroics. You look at all the 5 million PPP loans the SBA has approved. You look at all the last mile delivery that has kept us all fed and clothed and everything. I mean, every sector just been amazing. The what I call acrobatics. Anil had talked about some when he came here 6 months ago. Tell me about some that have made you go, wow, I didn't think that was doable, or this is just stretching the human capabilities.
Yeah, it has been amazing. And I think I'll comment on some of what I'm seeing from our customers kind of inside the realm of, or from the Workday context. But then I wouldn't mind just touching on some of the things that I'm seeing outside of that Workday context, right? Like, as you're mentioning, customers kind of stepping outside of their normal operations to really change things. So within kind of the realm of Workday, it's been pretty amazing how adaptable our customers and partners have been. We really haven't missed a beat in terms of go lives, right? Every single deployment shifted to virtual. All training shifted to virtual, and pretty much without missing a beat, right? The customers adapted, partners adapted in terms of how they were turning on solutions across all the spectrum of applications, whether that was core HCM, payroll, financials, planning, analytics. It all shifted. And we've had some amazing go lives over the past, since February, March, April. We've had some customers that have gone live from 0 to bringing 80,000 employees live. That was the watermark. I'm trying to think of when that was, maybe back in May or June. And then, recently we've had customers go live with 500,000 employees from starting pre-pandemic to going live with 500,000 employees and a big bang go live just a couple months ago. We had another go live with over 450,000 employees globally past month. And so, if you think about those numbers, that's just putting all those into a single cloud solution in normal times would have been an amazing feat. But if you think about all these organizations and the employee base that they're supporting worldwide and having those customers go live, that's been amazing. So that's not only impressive, but what I really have been amazed by is just customers using this time, right? It's the pandemic, it's the time of social injustice, to step outside of what they're doing day to day and think bigger, right? The amount of collaboration across our customer base and by leaders in that space have been amazing. So if you think about the People Plus Work Connect initiative that's going on to connect employers to jobs and available skills, which is not really benefiting any of the companies that are driving that effort, but they're doing that for society. I think that'll be the single thing that stands out to me the most, is how competitors are coming together to do better for employees in the workforce and just the world in general.
This is specific to COVID. Obviously there have been some unique public health organizational issues. There have been a bunch of work from home issues. Now people going back to work sites, so physical distancing and disinfecting and all that. All these are employee issues, right? So talk some about how Workday has worked with them on these. I mean, the HR role has dramatically changed. Right?
So much. Yeah. I would say, I've kind of witnessed 3 stages, in the pandemic, when I think in February, right, when things were just hitting the US, the first thing that customers were calling me about was just business continuity. Like when they were shifting their entire workforce from home, they knew we were going to likely do the same. And so they were calling and saying, how do you make sure your systems are going to be able to support us, right? We support, I think, around, over 44 million workers within the Workday applications. And people were worried, how are things going to keep running if no one's in the office? So that was step 1, is assuring them that we would keep their systems up and running, that we would continue to exceed our SLA agreements with customers. And then you're right, the second phase was around, okay, now this is our new normal, new abnormal, I like to call it, because I don't want it to be the new normal. This is our new normal. How do we now take this next step in supporting our employees? And we've seen record volumes. Well, let me back up. First, I would say we took a step back and said we need to take a very personalized approach based on industry, because all the industries were experiencing it so much different, right? So some frontline retailers, higher than holiday volumes, how would we support them? For those individuals, the first thing they were thinking is we need, to make sure that we have better contact tracing. So using our applications, which would be across our Prism and our HCM applications. Prism's our analytics application, to say, okay, where are the workers and what's their status? Have they tested positive? If they have, or where are they within that spectrum? And then also saying, okay, how do we look at the skills of our workers and determine what is needed where? And so that's what you were saying before when you talked to David, is not only understanding the skills, but understanding the gaps and the specific locations, and saying, okay, can we pull that from internal talent, or do we need to post a job? And that's what a lot of our healthcare customers did. They even looked at pools of workers that had retired to bring them back to fulfill those needs. The other big increase that we saw was around learning. So we have a customer, Bill Gosling, who's a contact center, and they've never had remote workers, ever. And they're in a contact center. And so now they were faced with the issue of saying, how do we teach our employees to work from home and then ensure that they're servicing our customers? So they actually used Workday Learning to create videos on how to set up your PCs at home and then kind of next modules about how to service the customers. So a lot of creativity in terms of the use of the applications in order to fulfill their needs to their customers and take care of their employees, right? But you're right, CHROs have all these new demands on them. It's not about just talent management or typical HR activities. It's how do we manage health and safety? How do we manage our facilities? And then now it's mental health, right? It's kind of gone into this third phase of workers are really tired. They're stressed out. So how are you keeping a pulse on their mental health? We have a lot of customers that use our survey mechanism within the Workday applications to pulse their employees on a regular basis to understand what their sentiment is, what they're struggling with at home, and then they pull that data together in order to drive programs out to serve their employees better.
You know, you mentioned the role of CHRO. I was interviewed recently and I said, you know, HR has talked about being strategic for decades. It's always been aspirational. I said, I don't know if they've become strategic. They've definitely become essential in this time frame. Unbelievable what they've have been called to do. So, yeah,
I agree. I once hosted a roundtable in New York, in our New York City office, and we had we had a mix of CHROs, CIOs, and a couple CFOs, and that was the conversation. The CHRO was like, how do I become more relevant at the table? With my CIO has a great relationship with my CFO. I'm talking about my talent pipeline. And we had a lot of deep conversations then about, you know, connecting the applications when you have a single application for HCM and financials, and better connecting the spend of your organization to programs and using that for measurements to really elevate the role. But now, you know, like you said, with the pandemic, with social injustice, there's so many more topics that the CHRO is embedded in, and really new initiatives that they have to be driving.
And you guys are evolving, right? I mean, Barbary presented to me on your Vibe product. So you guys are keeping up with them. That's good to see. Let's talk about reopening. You know, you worked with Salesforce. Salesforce has something called work.com. You work with IBM on all the physical site reopening protocols. You know, in all the interviews I've done, most of the executives have told me lockdown was difficult. We had to do it really quickly, but we did it. They said reopening has been a mess. So conflicting local guidelines versus state guidelines. It just seems like it's been a lot more difficult. What have you seen, and how are you helping your customers in all the reopening protocols?
We have seen it, like, it varies widely. And again, kind of leaning back on that personal approach to customers, understanding what's happening in different parts of the world, right? So our customers in Asia, in some places are back to normal. I mean, we're even approaching that from a Workday perspective. So we're looking at all the offices individually. And, you know, we have a support center. I have a team in Auckland. They're back in the office. And for a while, some of those locations could be back in the office without mask, which is, you know, to even think that, you know, living in California, to think that I was buying my plane ticket. So, you know, ensuring that we're supporting them locally. But I'm hearing the same thing from customers. I was on a steering committee meeting with a large bank yesterday, and really the stress of them balancing, you know, they have to open their branches to service customers, and how they're, like I had mentioned earlier, how they're using the applications for contact tracing And we have a lot of customers, to be fair, that have done that within the Workday applications. They've used a combination of our Prism and our Extend products to make sure that they can track every worker and their health status. They're doing health attestations on the application. We even use that. We have an office here in California, and I tested it out just because I'm one of those users of applications where I said, I wonder if I don't fill out my form this morning, if my badge will still work. And I didn't fill it out and my badge didn't work. And so it's been really great how, Workday, we always try to use our own applications first, but that's a great use case of if you don't take your temperature and fill things out, then you can connect that to your facilities system and then disable badge access. And so again, we've seen customers take advantage of that, especially our healthcare customers, where they really have to, we've had them track their workers in Workday and then tie that to their EMR systems to ensure that they are healthy and coming in. They can schedule them based on their health status right in their EMR systems.
Well, let's switch gears. Enough of the HR executives, much as they deserve a lot more credit in recent times. Let's talk about financials and analytics.
Great.
Analytics in particular, it's been a wild time, right? I mean, you look at the ordinary citizen has been watching the John Hopkins metrics every day, right? The stats will have an asterisk. Every single sport will have an asterisk. Over and over again, we are seeing new analytics. Snowflake went public, biggest IPO in a long time. I mean, the whole market has just been alive and very different, it seems like. What are you seeing with Workday Analytics that is reflecting kind of this new reality?
I think a good way to put that in context would be that it's not just about the analytics, but what we've seen is the benefit of having the ability to plan, execute, and analyze in a single system. I think you probably heard us talk about that before because it's really the interplay between all three of them. We've seen record numbers of plans being developed in our adaptive planning solution. And we have customers that have gone from their previous forecasting methods to now forecasting on a monthly basis and providing those forecasts to their board of directors because things are changing so rapidly. And so that's the feeder into the system. And then they're executing on that operational plan. And we've seen a lot of benefits there. If we're talking specifically about financial, that's, not only executing on their, the financial applications and being able to do things like close books remotely. And, but now one of our customers said that a huge benefit was they had their auditors. It used to be your rooms of auditors would show up, right? We have a special conference room for our audit team to come in. Now through the Workday applications, their auditors are just accessing the system directly or pulling the reports directly from Workday, so they don't have to be in the office, right? So they're seeing those types of benefits. And then coming back around to analytics is how you're feeding your HR data, your planning data, and your finance data into the system to drive new analytics. And I think the thing that stands out for me is not just the data that you can get out of the system, but the agility in which they can provide new reports that are required by regulators, that are required by state governments, how quickly they can provide those reports back to their constituents. Mm-hmm.
Your previous role, Emily, was watching over your partners. I say watching over. System integrators deserve to be watched over.
I still do that, by the way. That's still part of my job.
How have they evolved? Because here clearly travel is not an issue. Clearly, nobody wants to see 20 strangers. They may be in suits show up at their facilities, given all the constraints with physical access and all that. How have they adjusted?
So probably around 26 partner firms, 11,000 individuals. They're instrumental in our customer experience.
Right.
And I think at Workday, we're really proud. You and I have talked about this before, about how we work with our partner ecosystem, the collaborative nature of that, right? The tools that we provide, the sessions that we have with them to share best practices and ensure that they're delivering at the highest quality on behalf of our customers. And I would say that hasn't faltered at all during the pandemic. They have been great about also shifting to complete virtual deployments. We have developed, best practices and lessons learned across our team, and again, share that out to all the partners to ensure that we were helping them as much as possible. But they've delivered, across all industries, all sizes of customers. I think that what I've seen is more creativity, not just in how you're deploying, right? So now that you've shifted, you used to do in-person design sessions, right? And those are on Zoom, and they've been creative in ensuring that they're keeping customers engaged and they're still sussing out global requirements as necessary, right? I think that's table stakes. What I've seen them do a really great job on, though, that's been really impressive is more tooling. So how do they ease the burden of data conversion for customers? And I think the thing that I'm really proud of is that they're using that to drive savings in the deployment costs and pass those on to customers, which is great for everyone, right? Customers are generally, most are constrained.
I've been screaming about that for a long time, so that's great to hear.
So really great ETL tools. We have, partners in the medium enterprise space that could take a file from, a legacy system the customer's deprecating and immediately load that into Workday. The other thing that we've been really focused on is developing pre-configured content. So continuing to invest in those libraries and now making them specific to industry. So healthcare pre-configurations versus government pre-configurations. And that's gone really well in terms of the uptake of those. The other thing that I've seen, I would say 3 things from customers in terms of how they've gotten through the deployments at this point is some customers have slowed down and elongated their deployment. Some of our really large customers that are possibly faced with financial constraints. They haven't stopped, but they've said, okay, we're going to elongate it because if it's an HR transformation, our HR professionals are pretty stressed right now. So they've elongated it. More customers have accelerated their deployments. And they said, let's just try to get live sooner. We really need to understand the skills of our organization. So let's try to do that in a compressed time frame to get live quickly because they're seeing the benefits of a cloud solution right now. And then the third thing is that I've seen customers take on more roles in a deployment that were typically staffed by systems integrators, meaning, hey, we're not going to outsource this. We're going to use our own people to do these tasks that we typically pay for. Yep. And those last 2 trends are ones that I really want to stick when we come out of this, right? Faster deployments and more self-sufficiency from customers.
On the last one, I've heard some companies say, because the integrators have moved to work from home also, they're not as sure about the privacy and security of those staff from home. And as you can imagine, especially if they're in offshore locations, the privacy from home can be a little suspect. So that's one reason why customers are saying, if you can keep it inside, at least the sensitive data.
Oh, interesting. I haven't heard that. The ones that I've been working with are more just out of necessity and intention to lower cost, right? And it's been great because their teams are ramping up quicker. They're able to be self-sufficient more quickly. So that's more the observation that I've had.
And even there, people are understanding, you got to get work done. So, you want to be too fussy or too control oriented versus delivering something, right? So Emily, we've covered a lot of ground. What else would you like to share? Brag about your customers a little bit more. Brag about your fellow Workday employees.
Well, what would I like to share? I think that although it's been a really challenging time, like we talked about, I do think the great things that have come out of it have been this, acceleration of digital agendas. I'm sure you've heard that, right? That everywhere you turn, it's like, we better hurry up. And it is really great to see that. And we're doing this internally as well, to be fair. I have some projects around improving the digital experience for our customers outside the Workday applications, right? So how they log tickets, their community, and we've taken this opportunity to really to shrink the timeline and go to market sooner on those solutions as well. And so I think that, you know, customers thinking in that manner, taking advantage of it, figuring out how you bottle up this sense of urgency for later is be really important. Like I said, I've really enjoyed the push for creativity. As I mentioned about how customers are being more creative on how they deploy our solutions. And I think the other thing that I've been impressed with, both with the Workday team and with our customers, is how they're really taking care of their employees, because you're having to do that in such a deeper way than we ever have before, right? There's new topics that we have to address with our team members that used to be so taboo from talking about at work. And at Workday, our culture is our secret sauce, and our people are so important to us that, you know, how we're leaning in and taking care of each other, and how our leadership team has showed up and led with transparency and authenticity has really been the key to us thriving and surviving to some extent, right, with certain things. And then in turn, you know, turning that around and taking care of our customers and leading by example in that manner too.
Emily, let me tell you, I've done so many of these, and I look forward to each one of them, because business executives are clearly stressed, right? But they're so outcome oriented, so outcome focused, and so positive, right? Politics don't bother them. Whatever is outside doesn't bother them. So it's great to see you smile. Thank you for your service. I'm sure your customers thank you all the time. You know, once you leave this bubble and go listen to media and social media, it is like a whole different evil world, isn't it? So I'm glad I get a chance to spend time with people like you. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Vinnie. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.